Hi everyone, my name is Chiara and I want to share with you the work I carried out after attending the Diversity, Ethics and Inclusion Lab. During the course, I approached research for the first time, actually conducting a qualitative research. That is to say, a type of research that aims at exploring people's perceptions and attitudes towards a specific phenomenon, usually through open ended questions. So the study was later titled Preferibilmente Donna: How Gender Stereotypes Influence Landlords' Tenant Selection. We'll now see step by step how the research was carried out. I drew inspiration from my apartment search in Florence, where I noticed that landlords were more reluctant to rent their properties to male tenants rather than to female ones. So this led me to question whether the stereotype of men not being able to perform basic household tasks resulted in landlords' fear of a higher chance of degradation of the apartment. So the goal was to investigate whether and to what extent the observed phenomenon exists. I then formulated the research question, which is, are landlords less willing to rent their properties to male tenants due to gender stereotypes, and how does this matter affect males and indirectly females? I then also formulated the two different hypotheses. So the null hypothesis that states landlords evaluate male and female tenants as equals when renting their properties disregarding gender stereotypes, and the alternative hypothesis, which is the one related to my experience and the one that I want to prove through my research. That is, landlords do not evaluate male and female tenants as equals when renting their properties, resorting to gender stereotypes. As for the methodology, the intention was the one of conducting a qualitative study, spreading a survey, and using the responses to identify patterns and frequent behaviors to gain insights, so relevant information. We now analyze the answers that we received from the survey. So the first questions were about the demographics. Starting with the demographic analysis, 65 people answered. So 91% of them are women. Most of them are Italian, between 18 and 25 years old, with a pretty high level of education, so a bachelor's degree. We can see that there is no segmentation needed, so we don't need to divide the participants into subgroups because we already have a specific and targeted group of respondents. So let's have a look now at the real survey questions. So in the first question, participants were shown a picture of 6 potential tenants that differ in age, ethnicity, and gender, and they were asked to rank them based on how suitable they looked as tenants. So no background information was provided, and the ranking was only based on the physical appearance of the tenants. The results showed that person number 1, person number 2, and person number 3 were most often ranked at the tops in the first positions, while person number 5 was always ranked last. This suggests a preference for younger tenants, especially if white individuals, and also an aversion against older ones. Regarding the second question, there is something that needs to be pointed out. The question in Italian contained the word tipo, asking people to write the first 3 words or adjectives that came to their mind when thinking about the affittuario maschio o donna tipo. As I started receiving responses, I realized the Italian word tipo in the question led to different interpretations. When it came to describing the male tenants, the participants understood it as referring to the ideal and perfect tenant, used words such as clean, organized, gentle, reliable, while the others that interpreted it as the typical and stereotyped tenant wrote untidy, invasive, and noisy. On the other hand, responses about female tenants were much more consistent. So regardless of the interpretation of tipo, all the answers aligned with a positive image. All of this suggests that the ideal female tenant kind of overlaps with the stereotype one, while the opposite happens with male tenants that are often seen more negatively. The third question wanted to understand how much gender influences one's judgment regarding cleanliness, tidiness, and the upkeep of the apartment. And over 70% of the respondents said that gender does influence these judgments, while only 29% of them said that it doesn't. They said that it's not influential at all or not very influential, but 71% is a lot higher than 29%. So we could say that gender does play a role in this case. The next to last question asked participants to rate how much they associate certain adjectives such as tidy, calm, reliable, noisy, and untidy with male or female tenants. So from the graphs, an inverse pattern kind of stands out because the more negative the adjectives are, the less they're associated with women and vice versa, suggesting again the idea that women are seen as better tenants. Finally, in the last question, people were asked who was more likely to neglect an apartment between two fictional tenants, Marco and Elena, a male and a female tenant, and 35% of the respondents chose Marco, while only one respondent chose Elena, which almost led me to think that it was a genuine mistake seeing the direction of the survey so far. So with this research, I hope to understand better whether male gender stereotypes of being unable to perform housework and also therefore to take proper care of the environment in which they live leads landlords to most likely favor female tenants. And the results of the survey highlights that gender does appear to really influence the perception of tenant suitability. Because women are usually seen as more reliable, clean, tidy, and organized compared to men. We could say that there is also a visual bias that we could see thanks to the first question with the image. And the bias is particularly against male and older tenants that are often ranked lower, even without any background or contextual information. However, it is also important to note that all these findings are based on personal perceptions of the respondents rather than direct experience in real estate management, because all the people that answered did not have any working experience in the field. Moreover, since most respondents were women, all the results reflect a female perspective and they may not be fully representative. We could then say that further research should focus on gathering a more comprehensive and representative sample, and maybe with also people with related working experience. Thank you very much for listening.